Your host, Josh Levine. I want to start the show today by saying RIP to DJ Crazy Tunes. Tunes was the DJ for Ice Cube, for Dub C. If you don't know, I used to manage Dub C back in the 90s and got to spend a lot of time with Crazy Tunes, who was not only an amazing DJ, but a really important contributor to West Coast hip-hop and hip-hop culture in general. And we lost him recently. And much love to Dub C and Tunes' family. You'll definitely be missed. On a happy note, we have DJ Skee today as our guest on Rebel Radio. Skee has been called the Oprah of music, the Ryan Seacrest of hip hop. He's one of just the most interesting cats that I've had the pleasure of meeting through this show. He's gone from being a DJ to producer to a marketer to a TV personality with Skee TV, and is now the founder of Dash Radio. Great lessons from this man in our action-packed interview. It's a fast-moving interview. You're going to want to pay attention to all these good lessons. He talks about the importance of preparation and research, knowing his audience. He says he likes to go into every situation knowing as much as he can, and that's wise words from DJ Skee. He also gives us some great stories about letting things go. This man has retired from more successful careers than most of us will ever have. And he's got a great philosophy on when it's time to move on and make room for something new. And now we get into the interview with DJ Skee. Dude, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate you making time. I've been kind of hearing your story from afar, from Ryan, and you know, just hearing your name everywhere.
Dude, anytime, bro.
And so this is fun for me because like I get to learn about people that I might know or know of or whatever. And so I've been doing all this research, and we have all these connections that sort of should have figured, but I didn't know. So I'm excited to get into some of that.
Me too. It all comes together.
For sure. But I always like to start kind of at the very beginning, and so we'll get to where you are today as a international superstar, DJ, personality, entrepreneur, all this great stuff. But let's go back to the very beginning. Tell me about the first time you fell in love with music.
I mean, I fell in love with music as a kid. I mean, I guess it kind of came in my family. My dad's an incredible piano player. My mom used to sing in like Up With People, and so it just kind of came natural from the family. Like my dad used to put headphones on my mom's belly when she was pregnant with me. So I guess it was even before I was born that music started. But I mean, the turning point for me was when I got my turntables. Up until that point, I thought I was going to be an athlete. I wanted to be a pro baseball player. That was my life. But
nice.
As soon as I got my hand on turntables and records,
good baseball.
Exactly, Minnesota was great baseball, except when it snowed, so we'd have to go inside and play. So but once I got into those turntables, I knew that it just instantly clicked. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is my path.
Was there a first record for you that like clicked as like, this is my music, not your parents or something like that?
First record. That's a great idea. I had so many things. I mean, it came up right when CDs were coming out, so I'm trying to think like the first CDs and stuff. I mean, tapes. I was buying like MC Hammer tapes as a kid. I'm not ashamed to admit it. He was dope back in the 90s. So Hammer don't hurt him. But so I was buying that. So many CDs. But I guess when it comes to vinyl and records, I mean, one distinct record I remember getting early on, this would have been in like 1999, was a promo copy of Dre's Still DRE before it dropped. And it was like a green vinyl, just a single. And I don't know, it was just so cool too, getting something early, getting like a promo version, especially like a green colored thing. That's the first vinyl that really stands out in my head when I think back to it. It wasn't the first record I had, but it was at that same time and when I was first starting DJing, and that just I still have it. It's, just memories for me.
Yeah. And then what about, so you mentioned, getting the turntables, and that was a turning point. Do you remember your first gig, like playing for other people?
First gig would have probably been, I think it was either one at my high school, or it might have been something with friends. And then one of my early ones too, I was like, So I started DJing more. I did a lot in my basement before I actually went out, as a lot of people do. And then one of my first ones was opening up for Scarface and the Ghetto Boys had a show.
Oh, shit.
So we did a show with there's another group out there, and I was DJing for them, and we opened up there. So yeah, it was like either in my high school or something with like the Ghetto Boys and Scarface, like opening up super early. But
how'd you do?
Good, dude. I thought I did good. I mean, it wasn't that tough. I wasn't on that much. Nobody's even paying attention at that time. But for me, it was. And I'm always about preparation, so I came in ready to go.
Is that right?
You know, yeah. So
where'd that
always
come
good
from?
to go.
That
I don't know. I've always just been one of those people that, I think one of the keys to getting things done and is knowing as much as you can about things. That's why I'm always trying to absorb knowledge in any sector, and even learning with people and doing your research on what people are into goes such a long way. That's how, even looking back when I connected with Steve Rifkin, when I wrote him, a lot of people know that my story is I wrote him a letter on what, I thought he was doing wrong and ideas for his label. Yeah. But I did a lot of research into Steve before I wrote that, knowing what types of things he was into. He obviously pioneered street teams. Sure. He was the first to do that, guerrilla marketing. So I obviously focused, a lot of my thought processes in a way that he would understand and appreciate based off of what he is. And so many deals I've closed over the years have been you play to your audience. Even when you're DJing, if you go to and I've worked between multiple genres, whether it's, a good example is like at the Vikings games where I've been DJing this year, which is fun. So before the players come out, much more mainstream stuff, family-friendly stuff. Then when the players come out, my goal is to amp them up and hype them up. And so it turns into like Trap City then all of a sudden when they're there, and the crowd is half the crowd is probably like whatever. But my goal, like you're playing for specific audiences at different times. And then back when they go into the tunnel before the game, then you go more mainstream again with it. So it's all about playing to your audience. It's really what you have to do with, being a DJ. That's the definition of it. So I guess it's kind of been a natural philosophy in just my life now that I think about it.
Yeah. So the Rifkin, so I interned for Rifkin long before Wu-Tang was signed.
Wow.
Alcoholics
hadn't
come out yet.
Wow. So who was there then?
Madcap. It was the first record on the new label.
Yeah.
After Twista, and then he moved, and then Madcap, and I worked that record a little bit. Steve taught me a lot.
Steve's the man. Steve's always been able to incubate great talent and surround himself with it. That's one of his, keys to success. The people you've seen so many people come from SRC, from Loud, and even all the artists that he's had. Yeah. There's been so much success out of, that he's identified. That's been probably his greatest skill, I feel, surrounding himself with great people.
So what'd you say in that letter?
I talked about a lot of digital-based things. So Steve at the time didn't even know how to really use email. This would have been about 1999, and because I was 16 years old, and he, the letter was all focused on how things were going digital, ideas I had to market things, to reach them. At the time, was doing mixtapes and started putting things on, I built a website, and this is way before, the majority of the world was on the web yet, so it was super early with that. And he kind of knew that, again, to Steve's credit, he was always great at identifying trends and spotting what's next. So he kind of realized that was next and had no idea how to get into it. So he kind of hired me, and I became his eyes and ears, kind of that voice of that next, millennial generation, I guess. Sure. And to help him really with that shift to digital.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I saw the same thing in Steve, that, he's great at finding talent.
Yeah.
So what'd you learn from working with him that you brought into your own business?
So much. I mean, I was there at the end of the Loud days and the very start of SRC. So basically it was a startup, within that. So kind of saw, which, gave me a preface to how to start a company, how to build it up, how to go through the pros and cons and, deal with, the issues that you have, and seeing also where things went wrong in the Loud days, and hearing those stories and hearing him say like, oh, what happened, and how he sold to Sony too early, and watching kind of how different choices can, make drastic different outcomes in the long run, and always playing the long game, as well as, just being a self-starter. I remember, my first day in the office, he just sat me in front of a computer and was like, all right. And I was like, what do I do? He's like, you know what to do? I was like, yeah. I had no idea. I didn't know what the hell you even wanted me to do, but you just kind of get there and figure it out. And, and even, so many experiences going on my first private jets and flying up to Nike to meet with, the president of the company, and pitching these campaigns and seeing how it was done. It was really the foundation for everything that I've done, and really kind of cut my teeth in the industry.
Yeah. You talked about selling a business, and obviously as an entrepreneur, that's something that crosses everybody's mind, right? And my experience, having owned businesses and a lot of friends, just watching a lot of friends, is like, it's really hard to know when is too early, too late.
Yeah.
Right? And you hear all these stories. I met the guy one time who founded Penguins.
Okay.
Frozen yogurt.
Yep.
And he's like a consultant now. And he's like, the reason I still consult is because I didn't sell my company at the right time. He's like, I made money, but I didn't make that kind of money where I'd never have to do it again. He's like, and I should have, but it drew for me. He was on the other side. Like, he waited too long until the business was arcing down.
Yeah.
So now that you have your own companies, how do you think about that?
It's the same thing, and look, there's no right answer, and you kind of are always, you never can see. It's always easy to look back and say you should have, but you never know. You also could have been, if you look at the Facebook example, I remember when I saw that Mark Zuckerberg turned down $1 billion from Yahoo or Google and whoever it was back in the day. I was like, this guy's insane. What is wrong with him?
Sure.
$2 billion, he turned it down. It obviously turned out to be the right moves. And then you look at other things, like even MySpace, when I was like, they only got bought for $500 million, and now what are they worth? So there's no way to really tell and look back. I mean, I think what you have to do is always make the right choice at the moment based off of the given circumstances and everything that you know. I mean, that's all you have to go off of, and you can't worry about making a mistake. You just have to go for it, follow your intuition, follow I guess everything that you see in front of you, and just make those choices and not be afraid of the outcomes, and do what's best for you and what you feel is going to be. The way I approach it is, I love what I do. It's not just about money. So if we were to do anything, it'd have to be a situation that kept me happy and that would be, offer many more incentives. It's not like something we're just going to sell and walk away from. The only way we'd even consider or think about selling anything is if it fell in line and enhanced the overall everything else that we were doing, meaning could provide faster distribution, content, beyond just money. It's more than just money. That's not what the decision should be based around.
So I know you've had partners along the way, and collaborators, and yet you're the face of the brand, right? That it's your name on the door, it's your face everywhere. So that's a little different than being kind of a faceless CEO, who's a little bit behind the scenes. So how do you balance those things? And I guess I'm wondering, like, what kind of partner are you, and what makes somebody a good partner for you?
For sure. I mean, in terms of using my brand, I say it's the greatest strength and greatest weakness. And to be honest, it's not something that I really set out to do or even necessarily wanted to do. I'd rather prefer to be the behind the scenes guy and not even have my name, or, like, I'm very quiet and private when it comes down to it. But in order for certain things to happen, in order for us to launch certain things, I've had to leverage the platform and the brand that I've built to kind of accelerate that. And then I can, you see me slowly start stepping back. I mean, even when you look at Dash, like, I don't want it to be, it's my pet peeve if somebody's like, oh, that's DJ Skee's radio thing. Like, no, it's not about me. It's about all of our employees, all of our 300 DJs, our 80 stations, our, incredible listeners. It's a platform. I'm one of those stations and partners on it, but it's not just me, and I don't want it to be. And if the business was just based around me, it wouldn't succeed. Even going back to Skee TV, I mean, that was just a cool concept that actually turned into a business, and it was obviously so tied to me, which is great. But then there's the challenge too, where it's always tied to you, which is something like, look, if you want to go retire eventually or whatever, how do you make those transitions? So that was something that kind of came not on accident, but it was never planned from the onset to be like this massive business that turned into multiple TV shows, production, number one videos, 3 billion views, and just kind of came to be. And my philosophy with everybody is I just try to do, whether it's with even our ethos here at Dash, is we have to do things where everybody wins: the listeners, brands, partners, employees, and that's what we're really all about. It has to be equal on all sides, and everybody has to win. There's not anybody left at the table feeling left out. I'm not greedy. There's enough for everybody. It just has to be, our philosophy is whatever makes sense and whatever's fair.
So is the plan just do shit that's fun and it'll work? Or like how much of it is that, and how much of it is like what we would think of as a business plan?
It's both. I mean, look, if I just wanted to make money, I'd probably be an investment banker, but that's not, what excites me is not looking at Excel sheets all day and figuring that out, even though you can make a lot of money. For some people it is, any disrespect. For me, I have fun with music, with radio, with identifying talent, identifying artists, empowering others, figuring out creative ways to, spread messages, figuring out how to navigate, especially new frontiers like we're at in this digital era. And if you look at Dash, that's what it is. I mean, so it has to be something fun at the core, And the fun kind of comes from the challenges in a weird way. It's how you figure how to maneuver through certain situations, how you maneuver to launch a new company and compete with the biggest ones in the world. And we have a very ambitious goal of becoming the biggest radio broadcaster in the world, which as radio shifts from analog to digital, which is definitely doable, but it's a massive undertaking. So there's a ton of challenges and things with it and parts that aren't fun. But when you look back on it, it's weird. It's like sometimes those stressful points and those challenges that you go through are the funnest parts in the end when you find the ways and navigate the ways. It's like, you know, almost like training for if you're playing sports or anything. It's not always the funnest, but looking back, oh man, that was such a good, like, it's weird. It's weird how it works out. You can't always appreciate it then, but it always, you know, it's all those little details that end up making it fun and end up making the positive things that happen that much sweeter. If everything was always incredible and great, even in your life or whatever, then you'd really, your barrier's kind of right here. You really have you're not going to feel it if something good happens because it's right there, versus if you hit, you know, lows or whatever, then you appreciate those highs and they feel that much more powerful to you.
Sure. So that sounds great, but when you're in a low, what do you do to remind yourself of that or to tap into that, right? Is it
great.
What do you do?
Great question. So there's different elements of lows, and it's different for every person. For me, I mean, luckily, at the end of the day, I have my health, family, friends, great team, having fun, career. So everything is temporary when you go through little setbacks. If you get denied something, if there's a challenge or an issue that faces, you really have to just be headstrong and look at the overall picture and in the scheme of things. And like, I was like, look, at the end of the day, we're doing radio. It's not like we're curing cancer or anything on that. We're doing something fun. And then you start thinking on Earth is a dust of grain in the universe and all that. So we're one of people that have been here for, you know, like this universe is billions and billions and billions of years old. Yeah. So we're so small in the scheme of things. Doesn't really matter. And sometimes you have to step back and be like, look, we're doing radio. It's not that serious. Everything is temporary, as important as it is to us. But almost just be, you know, you also have to have that head down drive and focus. It's like a horse with blinders. You have to see kind of the finish line where you want to go and not get distracted by whatever's happening next to you. No matter both how good or bad it is. On either side, you can't get too excited and you can't get too down. You just have to keep kind of pushing through and not giving up. The thing that I've realized is that you can do really anything in this world. If I wanted to build something, a way to get out of the universe, I guarantee you it's humanly possible. The only challenge you face is time. You don't have enough time to build something. It's probably not going to happen in our lifetimes. But if we had 1 trillion years, whatever it was, we would absolutely be able to get there. And it's kind of the same thing in life on a much smaller scale, but you can always get to any point. It's just, when do you throw in the towel? And that's a challenge, both good and bad. Do you sell out early? Do you sell out too late? You gotta kind of have to know and just go with your gut on those things. But anything is possible, and as long as you stay in the game, you're playing.
Yeah. So back to the idea of kind of picking talent, and you know, you talked about Steve, and you're in the same business, right? You have how many DJs?
You're one of them, so you tell me. That's why we're glad to hear.
So how do you do that? How do you know who's right?
For us right now, I mean, we've been able to build a really incredible team that, you know, with great program directors that I send a lot and kind of filter through them. It's been, for me, identifying the talent. They can also identify talent and empowering that next generation and letting them kind of go out and make the choices, just because I don't have enough hours in the day and I'm focused on different things than kind of sourcing through shows. Of course, if I hear things and I'm always keeping my ear open, I'll send it to them. But I think it's really, for me, learning to take a step back as well, and getting the other right people, identifying other talent that can manage and find those and control those people. And we've been able to build a really great, solid lineup over here at Dash, and it's only expanding. I mean, we're just can't build studios fast enough, which is a great problem to have.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, let's go back for a minute. I know early on you worked for Stretch Armstrong.
Stretch, yeah.
He's the homie, and he's been on the show. What'd you learn from Stretch?
Stretch is my guy. I mean, Stretch was my first real, first real DJ that had made it, that I was able to hang around. And I mean, he's, you know, what he's done in speaking of identifying talent, I mean, you're talking Nas, Jay-Z, Biggie, I mean, Wu-Tang Clan, everybody in hip hop that we grew up with in the 90s, especially East Coast, came from Nas' Stretch. Like, it was, you know, incredible what he did. So his legacy, hanging around him, this was the late 90s when he was also kind of shifting his career from just being that underground guy to being a mainstream guy and doing shows playing the Beatles. And it's almost interesting. It's like a place where I found myself, you know, as well when I turned his age. But I was just a sponge being in the studio with Redman, with Cameron, with DJ Premier coming up and dropping off new music. And he's like, oh yeah, it's Primo, he's bringing a new record. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And even if you look at the foundation of my radio experience, I used to go to his Sunday night mixtapes on Hot 97 and, you know, help him, you know, just sit around, carry his records, whatever I could do. And it was all about new music, and that's what my radio shows have always been about. So it's based off a foundation that I learned from him. Mixtapes I learned from him. He was doing the Murder Mixtape series back then with Who Kid when I was around, and I was helping him put some of those things even together. And that's what gave me my mixtape foundation. So it was really the foundation for everything that I did in my DJ career came from the time that I spent with Stretch as a teenager in New York.
Is there a particular lesson you think of that you got from Stretch?
Man, from Stretch, I think it was just letting me, you know, being in the backseat of his car, just rolling around, doing whatever, and seeing how the world really works, and realizing that these people are real, and they like, oh, it's De La Soul on the phone. Like, what? Like these people, like to me, being a kid,
right?
It was like you don't realize. You think of them as like,
yeah,
I guess not mythical figures, but people that, you know, you don't think you'll ever really meet them, or they're real and exist, and especially before the internet and social networks and anything. I mean, the internet was there, but not like social networks and the reach. So it showed me that, wow, this is real, and I felt like I could do it, and I felt like I was on the same playing field, especially when he'd ask me to help or do something, or if I could do this. I was like, wow, I'm actually playing, you know, it's like I'm playing at a major league level at that point, which was very empowering for me. So I was like, wow, I can do this. You know, it's not, like, why not me?
Yeah.
You know?
Was there a moment that you remember where realizing that you could do this for a living?
I mean, I knew, it's weird. Like, I knew when I started, like I said, when I touched the turntables, I just knew it was what I was going to do. I didn't ever even think, like, as a teenager, so you don't even think that far. But when Steve offered me that job, it wasn't really what I expected. I just, like, at the end of the day, when I wrote him that letter, I wanted, like, a Wu-Tang Clan shirt or an Exhibit shirt. I would have been the happiest kid. Loud had these really dope, like, sweatshirts they were coming out with every album. And I just wanted those. I would have been the happiest kid in the world. And I just wanted merch, really. And he offered me a job. I was like, holy shit, like, this is real. Like, I was planning on going to college, and you know, I had never really thought of it. I just knew it would always work itself out. And then I was like, oh wow, like, this is really happening now. Not like it's gonna happen. It's gonna, like, this is now. Yeah.
So was that the same thing? I know the story that, you know, you connected with Game, and you ended up producing his single or his 300 bars.
Yeah.
And that kind of put you on the map as a producer,
Absolutely.
Right? So how did that change the game? Like, is there a point where it's like the day before versus the day after that you 100%. Saw a difference?
For me, there's like a few moments in my life where you feel like, and I think everybody probably gets these opportunities where you have a chance, you know, there's real pivotal moments that you can identify that change your life. For me, it was when I connected with Steve through selling a PlayStation. Like, if I wasn't selling PS2s at the time, I wouldn't have never had the opportunity to meet him, which Stretch introduced me, at least not in that way, and wouldn't have moved out and worked for him and wrote him that proposal. So who knows where I would have been. So something as simple, and it could be simple as that. With Game, I was always DJing, but it's tough to get your name out as a DJ. And at the time, I had my own marketing agency. I'd left Steve and built my own business. It was, you know, we were doing all this stuff with T-Mobile and the Sidekick, very successful. The Daimler Chrysler, we relaunched, you know, the Magnum, the Chargers. I was known in the industry as kind of like this whiz kid in the marketing side, but I was always DJing. It was more the business side. But as soon as that happened, I was like, wow, my life is going to change. Now I'm going to be known from a more mainstream and consumer perspective as a DJ. Is this what I want? And I was like, yeah. So I decided, I made a very, I guess, informed choice to focus specifically on my DJ career, and sold my shares in my marketing company and just focused literally on DJing, and I was like, look, this is my little crack in the door. I've got to bust it open. So I went from 300 bars to then doing all the Games mixtapes to then doing all the West Coast stuff with Snoop and Kendrick and everybody else and the whole TDE crew, to then being on radio, and then expanding from just hip hop radio and West Coast stuff to mainstream, and then to pop station, and then to TV, and then to Vegas and all that. But it all started because of 300 bars. If there wasn't that moment and that crack in the door, I would have never been able to get those other opportunities. And it's almost like a platform, like one thing leads to the next, which leads to the next. It's like building a pyramid as you get to the top. And, you know, I guess it was very methodical the way that I did that, and I kind of knew what it was. But at that moment, especially because those windows come and go so quick. It was a choice that I had to make right then. Am I gonna go for this right now? And who knows if that ever opportunity for me as a DJ would have ever happened. Otherwise, I could have just been a guy that loved it and did it kind of, you know, for fun, and did a few parties and did it in his bedroom. Or do you really want to make, you know, yourself a brand and a name? And thank God I went for it, because now it's gotten me here. But there was a very distinct thing. And even if I would have done it 6 months later, like, people would have forgot about that record. So I had to choose kind of right then. And I kind of knew as soon as it came out, I was like, wow, this is a pivotal moment in my life. It's everything I've been kind of waiting for in the DJ side.
So there's a lot of great DJs, you know, a lot of them on this, on this platform, who, you know, are great at what they do. They know their music, they love it, they're successful.
Yep.
But you've turned it into something bigger. What is it that they're not? What makes you different?
I think it's, you know, I don't think it's anything that people aren't doing. I think it's just, I mean, luckily I was built, like, if you look at my career path, it was built with a business foundation before the DJ stuff blew up. So I was able to really understand the insides of business and learn ROI and working with brands and all that, and apply that towards my platform. And I always knew that I'd put kind of both together, which is what I've done with my businesses today. And for me, I think it's really having the knowledge base on how to do that, and starting up, you know, and working at basically startups and working outside of just DJing. It wasn't like I just DJ'd. I always did that as one of, you know, it's almost my side and my fun thing. It's kind of what got me into the industry, but then I focused on the business side when I got out here. But for me, it was always, you know, it was never just about DJing. It was always about building things and pushing the envelope and being involved with technology and creating good content. And for me, I was just lucky to be in the right place at the right time when YouTube was launching up, and, you know, starting Skee TV and making the right decisions, building a production arm, making the right connections, getting like Mark Cuban to who gave me my break on television, to then kind of identifying an opportunity in the market as radio shifts from analog to digital, and having the backing and the knowledge and the relationships with top investors in Silicon Valley, with top people in the industry, with top people that know how to build and run businesses, so we could put this together as a company and go out and raise money and go out and, you know, really build something. And I guess it was just from that knowledge that I built and collected over the years, even from people that I had met. Like, a lot of our initial backers were people that I was hanging out with and taking around, and kind of took a liking to, and was as interested. Like, I'm always just interested in how things work, from like, how does a camera work, to, you know, I want to learn as much, I want to know a little bit about as much as I can, and just seeing how, you know, especially, it was just during the same time my career as a DJ was going up. This is when, like, Silicon Valley was really exploding with startup culture and everything. And I really tried to tap into that and made some great relationships in that world that, you know, then connected me with other people, and that kind of empowered me to be able to start businesses on that level. So it was kind of, and those relationships were there because I took advantage of them when I was a DJ, when I was in that DJ, wearing that DJ hat, and kind of brought them together. So.
Mark Cuban called you the Oprah of hip hop.
I'll take it.
Tell me a lesson you learned from Mark.
Mark is awesome. I mean, what Mark showed me, Mark's the most normal guy. I remember we were out in New Orleans together for Super Bowl a couple years ago. And at the time I had this restaurant I loved. I was like, let me take you out there. He's like, no, I just want to go to IHOP. You know, like that's Mark. No, like, he's like, no, I don't want to go to the fancy Emerald restaurant. I want to go to IHOP. Like, literally, like, I'm good with that. And I mean, Mark is, I think, every guy's idol. He's a guy that made $1 billion off of a company. Nonetheless, a like an audio company with broadcast.com. So there's a lot of parallels there. But he just likes to have fun. I mean, he went and bought a sports team. That's probably the first thing I'd do if I had, you know, billions of dollars as well. And he's, you know, gone on to do one of the best shows ever with Shark Tank, and seeing what he's done and empower others, and always voice his opinion, right or wrong. You know, he's never shy to say that. Like, we've gotten into disagreements, not on a bad level, just like he thinks one way and I think another. But, you know, he's also showed me, you know, that, like, a billionaire, like, that's a number. He wasn't always that, and it's obtainable. It's not easy. It's tough. But, you know, he's truly like a man of the people, and that's why I think he has such a more opportunity. Like, I'm surprised. I really think if he ran for president this last cycle, he actually could have won. And I think he's got, you know, a lot bigger things ahead of him for that. But he's just down to earth, cool, but very, very smart and intelligent. We have great conversations, and just a great dude. And he's even helped and made great connections for me, and always supported me, even when, you know, we left his network. He gave me his blessing. I was like, it was tough, because it's like, man, I got a good opportunity over here. More money, more viewers, but I want to be loyal. And I talked to him. He was like, dude, go for it. Like, totally get it. I want you to succeed. Like, I still have your old episode, so I'm gonna make more money anyways. Like, go
Nice.
for it. So it was awesome. He's always just been an incredible guy.
That's cool.
So
Nice.
and he's gonna help me buy the Timberwolves one day. That's my goal. So.
Is that right?
I
Nice.
told him I need to. Yeah. So he's like, all right, I'll put in a good word with the league. So
That's cool. So, and then a lot of what you're doing is working with brands. I know you've done that, you mentioned with Sidekick and so many other brands along the way.
Yeah.
And then I think, I know there's plans here
oh yeah.
to involve brands in that. What do brands get wrong when they integrate into hip hop or music in general that they need to know?
The big things that I always preach to brands that many don't get, some get it right, is it has to be authentic, it has to be organic, and it has to be really native. Like, I'm big, like my philosophy with everything is empowering others. If I hire you, I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm there to help, but I'm really hiring you because I trust you. And it's almost the same thing with brands. If a brand hires me, tell me what your brand message is. Let's work together. Let's make sure, of course, we're on brand and it makes sense. But there also has to be a trust that way. Like, my goal is the same goal. I want you to be happy because then I'm going to get more business. So trust me, this is going to be the best way to do the job. It's not just like a lot of people approach it wrong and they're just like, oh, how fat a check can I get, and go to the next. We're like, yo, how do we actually build something so we build a long-term relationship? And the one thing I think is empowering and trusting talent. If you're going to hire them, if you're going to utilize them and want to tap into their audience, it has to be natural. There's nothing worse than seeing something forced and something there. It just doesn't work authentically. And it's also getting, a lot of brands get in their own way and they overthink, and it has to go through this department or this agency. And so many people are so scared of losing their jobs that they just do the normal. They're like, all right, we spent $10 million on traditional radio advertising last year. We don't really know the results. We can't measure, but we're not going to do anything else because this is the standard.
Sure.
And if it works,
you're not going to get in trouble for this.
they're not going to get in trouble. It's about like maintaining. Like, there's a certain point in your life where I think a lot of people just become comfortable coasting. Like, they want to achieve this and then they realize this is where it is and they kind of plateau, and it just sucks being in that situation, because then they don't want to take the risk versus, it might not work and people might be like, why the hell? It's easy to question something after the fact, but that's the only time greatness comes. So that's the biggest challenge. Identifying people that are really willing to stick their neck on the line and take a risk to try to do something great.
And so what are you creating that's different from the opportunities that are available, in traditional broadcast right now?
Look, our philosophy is that traditional radio advertising is just a bad model on audio. We think, especially with millennials, there's so many options out there, they'll tune out of it. So we're banking on kind of creating this whole new model that's integrated advertising, but it's more in a sponsorship form. So instead of hearing a 30-second advertisement on your show, you're going to hear you talking natively about a product. And it's not about hiding that. It's about making it organic and in a way. And the way, one brand that always has done it really well is Red Bull. And I always use this as an example. When they had Felix jump from space, it was Red Bull branded, Red Bull logo. They presented it, they talked about it. But they didn't cut to a commercial the second he jumped out. Like a lot of brands would have been, he jumped and then they try to keep you, come back after 5 minutes. Like, no, that doesn't work. That pisses people off. People are fine being marketed and kind of promoted and advertised to. They realize they need to make that, but it has to be done in a tasteful way. So for Dash, we're always about not interrupting the audio experience and making it native and natural. And we feel over the long term that this is going to be the future of what it is, especially when you get real-time metrics from digital platforms that aren't, just small sample sizes and PPM like radio's done. That it's a real true method. But over the long term, there's going to be a lot more money from that, and we can sell not just against an audience and a CPM size, but we can sell against the brands that each of our respective partners have built, because there's value in you and individual shows and all of our talent talking about it. And it's much better than hearing, just a generic 30-second ad that people just tune out.
So with that in mind, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited. I mean, Dash has really become my life. Like, I feel like this is, if you look at everything I've done in my career, from business to like even teaching Steve tech to obviously DJing, radio, new technology with things like YouTube, you couldn't have scripted a better thing for me to be involved in. I really feel like, look, there's a huge opportunity in the broadcast space as it moves from analog to digital. I mean, you're talking about a $45 billion a year global business. That, a lot of the incumbents haven't really built a solution from the digital ground up. They're just simulcasting what's already available, and there's a lot of overhead and debts that are out there that we just aren't burdened by because we're leveraging technology as well as the ability to scale globally. And we're like, look, if we take even a small fraction of that, it's a massive, it's a multi-billion-dollar business annually, and we think we can do that. So that's really, what I'm excited about. My focus is right here at Dash.
Cool. Okay, and then the flip side, what's been the hardest day so far?
Hardest thing?
Yeah.
Hardest thing so far is always, I guess, I mean, there's so many different hard things. The hard thing is kind of, especially as you expand and scale up, making sure you keep those core fundamentals that keep you strong with it, making sure you keep the right people around, because all it takes is, one wrong move and everything can come apart. They could do something wrong. They could steal. Like, there's so many different opportunities. So I think it's just constantly always balancing how to scale and expand and grow, hold out until you get the right deals while also keeping everything moving and keeping that foundation. It's like one of the challenges, especially that we're facing as we get big, is how do we keep the culture and how do we keep it all cool? It was easy when we started this, and there was 10 of us in a room putting these things together. It was a lot more easy to manage. And as you scale up, how do you get everybody involved and everybody on the same page and do it properly and still keep those core fundamentals? So I think that's, it's a fun thing, but it's definitely probably our biggest challenge.
Are there mentors or resources that specifically around this idea of culture that you lean on?
Absolutely. I mean, my philosophy and what I've learned, I've gone both ways. So I try to read books all the time. I've been able to be, have incredible bit from our backers. I mean, we have people like Mike Lazaro, who's Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Silicon Alley, the #1 person on the list, Forbes 40 under 40, $2 billion in exits, and other incredible people from Kevin Collarans and Matt Mickelson's, the great people in the tech side that have really been key to helping with us and hearing their stories, because they've done a lot of those same things. And what I try to do is listen to and absorb everything from articles I read to books to personal knowledge, but at the same time, there's been times when I've just taken advice blindly and done the same thing that somebody else has done, and it's been wrong because every situation is different. So what I've really learned is you really have to, take into account as much as you can, but at the end of the day, you have to make your own choice. So listen to everybody. A lot of people have been through those same things, but at the end of the day, you have to make your own choice based off the knowledge. And just because somebody's, like even Laz is great, like the guy has all these exits and all these things. He's like, I don't know, this is my opinion, but it might not be right for your business. So it's, and even with Mark, like there'll be times when I've disagreed with Cuban. And the guy's, has much more money than me and much more success on the business end, but he's not always going to be right there. Just like I'm not always going to be right there too. I could learn, he could say, I told you so, or he could be, you were right there. But it's taking as much into account that you can at the time, but also not being afraid to make your own decision.
Yeah. Is there one book that you kind of lean on the most for that kind of thing? There's
some great ones. One I like Ben Horowitz's book.
Yeah.
Hard Thing About Hard Things.
I love that.
An incredible book. Getting to Yes is something my uncle really lives by. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. Like it's taking ego out of it. How do we just get there? Like that's one key thing. I try to minimize my ego as much as possible, because at the end of the day, my goal is there. I don't care what happens, what people say. Like, as long as we get there all together, we all win. There's that. So Getting to Yes. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other ones. There's like a typical ones who move my cheese.
That's a good one.
It's just it's figuring out how to adapt. I'm trying to think. There was another one that I read recently that was really good. I can't remember the name of it. There's some great reading out there, and it's just
Mostly it's having the time to read is the big problem.
It's a challenge, I got through phases.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, I have a little lightning round that we'll breeze through before we wrap up. So let's go back to 18-year-old DJ Skee. What's one piece of advice you would give?
Focus on, if I could go back, besides like giving lottery numbers and all those things, I would say, instead of trying to do everything, focus on a few key areas and knocking them out, and really key on in everything going around you. Don't just try to, I guess I was trying to absorb everything too, but also just really, really focus on individual things instead of trying to do it all.
It's funny you say that, because from the outside, it looks like you seem to like prune as you go.
Yeah.
Right? And so you've given up more things than you've taken on, right?
Absolutely.
And
that's the key thing.
And I see that maybe as a mistake in other people, that they take on new stuff and they don't get rid of the old.
Yeah.
Is that a conscious process?
It's tough. It's you really have to kind of know when it's time to move on and focus on specific areas. Like my main focus right now, without question, is Dash, and it's just because, like, look, there's a lot of things I could do. I could go out, like I've done and been DJing in Vegas every weekend, and it was great. It was a time. It's not necessarily what I wanted to do my whole life, but there was a time and place for it. But if I did that now, it would deviate, even though I could make a lot of money doing it, it would deviate my focus from Dash, which has the potential to be a multi-billion-dollar business, and it's like risk reward. There's, I'm not going to make multi-billion dollars from DJing in Vegas every weekend over time. And if this opportunity is on the table, why wouldn't I put my all into that and into focusing on this business instead of getting distracted doing other things? So it kind of is a conscious thing. You have to pay the bills and do certain things. And I still DJ. I do a DJ if it's fun, or, still do a few paid gigs and stuff here to really, because we're still a startup and it still funds a lot of things that I do. But my focus is really Dash, just because it has such a big opportunity. So it's really, I've constantly made those decisions instead of trying to do every little like side hustle and thing that came. There's so many opportunities that come my way, and I have to say no to a lot. I just don't have time.
Of course. Is there some other talent that you always wish you had more of?
I guess sports. Now looking back, I always wanted to. I probably could have gone pro if I would have stuck with baseball. But looking back, it's like, those were great contracts. I could have used that to fund all the stuff back then. But
for sure.
Sports, baseball, basketball, football. So
nice. So if I worked here or I was on the team, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
Make it happen, I guess. My philosophy is when people come to me with stuff, it's like, look, we just got to make it happen. Like, we got to figure a way. If there's an issue, we find a way. I'm here to help and all those things, but a lot of it, like, look, I empower you. Make a choice, right or wrong, and we'll learn if it's wrong, and if it's right, good job.
So who would you be most excited, or maybe you've met this person, but to learn is a fan of yours?
Oh, good question. When I met like Mark Cuban, and when he was hitting me and offering me stuff, that was like surreal, just because, I think he's everybody's idol that's, a young male that wants to own sports and sell companies and live life biggest. He was definitely there. Snoop, I still get tripped out when he was like texting me this morning about stuff, and I'm like, look, this is Snoop Dogg. This is who I grew up listening to. Like, is this real? So like those two, without question. Even athletes, it's a trip when, we're talking to Adrian Peterson, who's become one of our big backers and a good friend of this business. I'm like, look, I'm the ultimate Vikings fan, so it's like our purple Jesus. So to see him, like to talk to him is just so surreal. Like,
that's
those
cool.
guys,
I know you're a big shoe collector, sneakers. Do you collect anything else?
It's really sneakers. I have a lot of memorabilia as well over the time, sports memorabilia as well as music stuff that I've just picked up over the years. But it's really just memorabilia and kicks.
Is there one thing that's like the pinnacle of the collection?
I have some signed OG Jordan 11s.
Okay.
Signed by Mike, the black and red ones. I have like game worn stuff from like Kevin Garnett's rookie year that's signed, Adrian Peterson stuff, Clint Dempsey, things from every athlete. Russell Westbrook game worn signed shoes, the Back to the Future shoes. I have DJ Am's pair of Air Force Ones, the Serato collab, that whole box. It's incredible because it was his. The whole Griffey pack. Griffey was my favorite baseball player as a kid. Some other signed Jordans. It's tough to nail down just one.
Of course, so I know we talked about books. What are you reading now?
Right now I'm between books. I just finished up the Ben Horowitz one. Now I was looking at other stuff. So you got to tell me, what should I be reading right now?
Oh shit.
I'm looking for something good right now. I got to get started on something.
All right, I'm gonna send you some. I should have some off the top of my head. Right now I'm reading fiction, so
okay. I read. What was
I like to alternate.
It's smart. I started reading more fiction this past year. I got to what else was there? There's a CAA book. There's another one that I just read too that I really liked. I can't think of it right now. My brain's fried.
I'll tell you one that's like, it's not a hard read, but Chuck Klosterman, this book, Eating the Dinosaur.
Okay.
And it's like he challenges all this. He challenges the idea of authenticity in a way that, like, for guys like us, the authenticity has been everything.
Yeah.
And he kind of argues that that's sort of bullshit in a way that's really interesting.
I'm sure there's valid points to that, and everybody has their own experience. So I'd love to read that.
That one's worth a look. What movie have you seen the most in your life?
Ooh, good one. It could be. It's like either like growing up because I saw him so much. It's like a Home Alone series. Independence Day, and it always seems like it's always on, and I always watch it. Godfather, and what? Goodfellas is on more, and Casino, so love all three of those.
Yeah.
probably one of those. I'm trying to think of some other. I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting, but those probably definitely those. Step Brothers is probably the funniest movie ever to me. So I watch that every time it's on.
Yeah.
So one of those.
Those are good. But yeah, that's always like, it's always something that's just on.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to seek it out.
It might not be my favorite movie of all time, but it's something,
it's
and if it's there, I'll always watch it.
Yeah.
You know?
Home Alone gets that, right? Because it comes around the holidays.
Exactly.
Year.
So you're always good with that.
Okay, and then the last one, who's your favorite DJ?
Favorite DJ? Ooh, there's so many different styles and sounds and reasons. Like from a business perspective, growing up, it was Clue on the mixtapes, because Clue on the mixtape scene there. Yeah. From, you know, the radio perspective and stuff, it was people like Julio G and Stretch that like kind of paved the way for the types of shows and everything that I did. From the business perspective, I mean, to see the doors that people like my friends like Aoki and Calvin Harris, Skrillex, what those guys have done is incredible. Watching, you know, like Diplo build that brand. There's so many great, like DJing is so vast and very, I mean, even you talk sneakerheads, you look at Clark Kent as being like the OG sneakerhead. Like, there's so many different weird things.
Who have you seen live that's...
Oh man, I mean, then you talk about like people like...
impacted you the most.
The Beat Junkies, and you know, growing up it was Qbert, like Invisible Scratch Pickles, and just the things that he would do in the DMC stuff. So, so many different areas. DJing is so vast and big now, but from a technical perspective, I mean, what those guys did, that's what I'd always try to mimic and do back in the day. So I'd say like, you know, Qbert, and Beat Junkies, and, you know, Executioners, all those true like DJ crews. That's what I grew up with.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Thank you for doing this.
This was incredible. This would be the best interview you've ever, like, super in depth. Great job, dude.
Oh man, I appreciate
You're gonna take my job. I'm done.
There's a lot coming from
I'm retiring.
Dude.
Thank you so much.
That's
appreciate you.
Yeah. Okay, that's a wrap with DJ Skee. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I loved it. I hope you will leave us a comment on our iTunes page, or give us a shout out on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or whatever you feel like. Doesn't matter. It's all up to you. Most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.